Hey guys! Welcome back to Plots with a Twist,
where we discuss books
amongst other things.
And today we are going to be discussing books that made us boohoo and cry, or just made us feel very much emotional and teary-eyed and just gave us the feels.
Yes. So let's get into it. Okay, so Asia is cold-hearted. So this has been a very difficult task for her. But for me, it was quite easy.
I feel like at movies, not books so much. But books have made me cry here and there. But
I feel like as I get older,
things cry more.
Not cry more, just things emotionally like move me more.
Me too, though.
Anywho, so I'm going to start. Let's see what I want to start. I'm going to start with the book I don't have on hand. And that was Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So, first of all, Cersei was moving as well. Baby. You didn't even read Song of Achilles, so how do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. So, Song of Achilles, if you're not familiar with it, it was Madeline Miller's, I believe, like, first.
Yeah, it was before Cersei.
Yeah, it was no, it wasn't her first one. She has another one actually before that I actually kind of might want to read. But Song of Achilles was the story of Achilles and his companion Patroclus. But they were actually lovers, and it was a great love story about just how they came to understand each other, came to love one another, and just how they both went off to this Trojan War, and just how they protected each other, in their own type of ways. And it was just a really beautifully told story, and it just emotionally moved me, especially when it got to like the nitty gritty of everything, and like how they lost one another, then they came back, and then they lost. Like, it was like a lot of back and forth, and it was just like so
I can't.
Yeah, Song of Achilles was very moving for me, and it got me a little teary-eyed. So that's my first one. So
okay,
you go, cold-hearted.
So the first one, I'll also do a book that I don't have on hand. The first one is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I think is one of like my favorite little authors nowadays. I think I could say she's
cute.
She does a good book. Yeah, that book made me cry a little bit. Here come Charlie. That book made me cry a little bit because, it was about, it goes through, like, the life of a woman through, like, all the marriages she's been in, her 7 marriages, and Evelyn Hugo. And she just went through a lot. She was just a strong woman who just been through a lot, being famous and just working her way up from the bottom and whatnot, having her family. And there were a lot of little aspects in there without like spoiling, but you guys should have read that book by now because it was the bee's knees last year. Or the year before, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was a particular part that made me teary-eyed, which was when the realization that whoever's dad was in the car and was killed, and it was just made me sad. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? So that just made me sad. And then Kristen brought up another point. We were trying to figure this out about how Evelyn like basically had to like hide her real love for who she was really in love with because of the times and stuff. It was a lot, but I do remember being misty when the dad died at the end. If y'all know what I'm talking about. So that's my what.
I just might know.
No, don't cut it out. Because I should have read that book. But anyway. So yeah, that was the first one that I'm going to talk about. Go sit down, Charlie.
Go home, Roger.
Don't
okay. So this one, let me do what I read. No, I'm going to go with this one. So this one is Still Alice by Lisa Genova. So if you've read this, you understand. So it's about Alice Howard. I'm all wrong. Alex Howland. She's a professor, very smart, very astute, has 3 adult children, happily married. Everything in her life is going great, except for she gets early onset Alzheimer's. And so it goes through her prognosis and being diagnosed with that disease, as well as the progression of it. And it's really aggressive for her. So it just goes through her life as she starts to lose her memories and lose certain functions and things like that. So just if you've experienced this, it's very like from a family member or something, it's very triggering. But it's also very emotional. It's very kind of just heartbreaking, everything that she goes through. And yeah, just her family dealing with it, her children, you know, with the possibility that they may inherit it because it's a hereditary disease. So yeah, it was just a lot to read through. But Alice, you know, she was trying to, you know, prevail, but just overall, just the way it ends too, she, you know, succumbs completely to everything. And it's just, I mean, that's not a spoiler. It's about, that's what it's literally about. But yeah, this was just a really kind of heartbreaking story. And I was weeping. I was weeping. I was just like, no. Yes, that's still Alice. This one had me. A little bit, a little bit.
Okay, so next one I'm going to do is a book that I don't have on hand either, but it's something that we've talked about and we did a review on before, which is Where the Crawdad Sings by
Delia Owens.
Yes.
Is that
I think so. So,
sure.
that book, yeah, I'll let you make sure. But that book, it was emotional to me because, you know, it goes over a story of the marsh girl. I forget the main character's name, but how she grows up in the marsh. Kaya. And she grows up in the marsh. And I think the thing that made me so teary-eyed and sad about it was that this little girl was, like, abandoned and she was left to fend for herself. And, like, even her, like, how she talked and, like, just experiencing things later in life because she was just basically had to grow up on her own, like, from, like, 6 years old, I think. Her dad was no good. Even when he wasn't around, he wasn't, you know, really taking care of her like he should have been. Then he left her, and then she thought she had a little boyfriend, and he went off to college and left her. So she was just, like, feeling abandoned. Especially when she was a young girl. It was a couple of points in there. I felt, like, so bad and, like, wanted to cry. I don't think I shed a tear. But I definitely felt the mist gather in my eyes.
She got that ice box.
I really don't. I cry like at Law and Order SVU all the time, like dumb stuff like that. But books, I don't know. Just sometimes it takes a while to get me there. But Where the Crawdad Sings did make me feel emotional because I just felt bad for Kaya. But it got better because, you know, she really came out on top at the end of it all, like lived a good, fulfilling life. So yeah, that was a little emotional book for me.
Okay, so my next book. I read this earlier this year, even though it came out a few years ago, and that's They Both Die at the End by Silvera. So it's just a beautiful story of these two boys that get a notification on the same day that they're going to die sometime within the next 24 hours, and they log onto this app called Last Friend and pretty much connect with each other and spend the entire day together. It's Rufus and Mateo, right? Yep, I remember. Is it Rufus? Am I thinking of something else? No, it's Rufus. I'm good. So that's how emotionally, you know, drawn I was into the story. Yeah, but I think Mateo is very kind of like to himself, very much an introvert, hasn't really experienced anything, but just such a caring and giving person. And then Rufus is more kind of like spontaneous, a little bit more outgoing. So he kind of draws Mateo out of his shell, and they just kind of give each other something that the other person didn't already have, and it just erupts into just like this beautiful love story. But they're both supposed to die at the end, and it's like, no, I want it to keep going. So yeah, I really found myself emotionally, like, I was weeping. I actually did weep a little. Weeping. But yeah, this was one that got me in the heart. So yeah, They Both Died at the End. It got me going.
That got me going. Okay, so my next one is a literary classic, if you will. It's a book that I read in the 7th grade, y'all. This is like, it was my favorite book at the time. If you asked me what my favorite book was, I would say this book. And I really think it's because my teacher forced us. It was one of those books that we were forced to analyze over and over again and watch the movie and do all this. So it became your favorite book because your teacher made you feel like you could relate. I couldn't really relate to anybody in here, but it was just an interesting story, and it is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. So this book, like I said, I read it in the 7th grade. That was like junior high for me, and I just remember. I'm trying to remember really like what it was about, but I know it was about.
You don't even remember.
I do, but it was about a group of like these gang. They were like gang members, but not like hardcore gangs, like how we think of now. But the greasers was on one side and the socks.
Okay.
The socias, socks. I don't know how you say it, but those were like the two little gangs, whatever. Of course, the greasers were like just think of like Grease, like how John Travolta and them look.
Like they pull out a knife.
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
bad. I watched the Bad video the other day.
They were very much bad Michael Jackson video, giving that type of energy. And the socials were like basically the boys with money type of thing, and like they would have their little gang fights and stuff. But I just remember that, even though I kind of ruined it for Kristen. Y'all remember "Stay Golden, Pony Boy, Stay Golden"? Remember that line or whatever? I just remember that somebody died. And I boo-hooed like a baby because they made the scene so emotional. Especially the movie, not so much. Like, I mean, Patrick Swayze was in it, Tom Cruise. Like, they were so young.
Like,
I know. But I don't think they played main characters. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. What's the name died at the end, and it just made me literally cry like a baby. Now, I actually shed like real tears. And I was young. I just felt that's when we started like reading books with curses in it and stuff, and like real issues. So people dying and stuff. It was just like, ooh, oh my God, like life, real life. So yeah, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Y'all let me know y'all remember this book. I read this book so long ago. It was so dramatic and so like, but looking back on it, it was like,
it's regular.
They was going through stuff, but it wasn't really
everyday
going,
life
yeah,
now.
they wasn't really going through stuff. So yeah.
All right. Well, my last book. Okay, this one took me a minute to read because it was a lot going on in my life at the time. It was just, so I paused, pick it back up. And the fact that I was weeping before I paused and I was weeping after I paused, like it was still like emotionally drawing me in, even though it was some time passed before me finishing it. I was like, this book is. So this is my lesser mentioned Fredrik Backman. My grandmother asked me to tell you she's sorry. So Fredrik Backman spits them out. Emotionally drawing stories. Go to Fredrik Backman. And this one is probably not, like, I would say not as higher ranked as some of his other ones. And this one's still good. But this is about this young girl. She's 7, almost 8. And her best friend is her grandmother, and basically all the kids at school bully her, and that's her only solace. So when her grandmother passes, that was the first thing. And then, but basically her grandmother in what do you call it? I was about to say postpartum. After death, her grandmother leaves her these letters to deliver to various people. And basically she goes up to them. My grandmother asked me to tell you she's sorry. But as she goes through this journey of delivering these letters, she realized they're related to some of these fairy tales that her grandmother used to tell her at bedtime. And they had this imaginary kind of like kingdom they go to. And she realized all these people were actual people. And her grandmother told these stories to give the granddaughter the stories of these other people's lives and just how her grandmother touched them. And everything just unfolds. It's just like a lot of trauma there that they're unpacking. It's just a lot. This one really had me going. It was like, oh my God, her grandmother kind of abandoned her mama, but she gave so-and-so a life after she done lost. Like, it was just a lot. So this one is really, really emotional. Really, really good. Fredrik Backman, he knows a thing or two about writing. Can't say that. I'm very much looking forward to his next release coming out soon. But yeah, this one had me going. Most of his books, I will say Fredrik Backman's whole catalog will have you crying, but this one was really emotionally moving. So that one, I don't want to say the title is too long.
Okay, so last one for me, Charlie wants to join me, is this She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb. This is a book that my aunt, shout out to my auntie, hey girl, she be watching, she asked me to read. I think she had read it and was like, oh, you'll love this. And I was probably like, I want to read this again because I feel like I would probably like appreciate it and get more out of it being a woman. Because when I read it, I was probably like 16 or 17.
Why are you reading these deep books at like?
Cause my aunt made
12
me. I
and
know.
16 and stuff.
So She's Come Undone is about. It's basically about this Dolores. It goes from like her being a teenager into like growing up into like a unhappy like woman. Basically, she's like overweight, and it says it's a coming of age story, and that's exactly how I would describe it. Like you're just in Dolores's mind as she's like going through these things as a young woman and trying to figure herself out and figure out why she is the way she is. And she kind of goes through like this kind of like, I don't want to say transformation because it's very realistic in the sense that it's not like a huge transformation. It's just like, you kind of like
grow and accept.
You grow through things, and you kind of not accept what life is giving you, but you kind of realize, okay, like this is my life and I gotta do what I gotta do to like fix it. And I just remember feeling like a man wrote this book, and the way he wrote a woman was just so like, it was crazy. Like, and that was something my aunt pointed out to me, because she was like, I ain't know nothing about analyzing
right.
books. Like a man wrote this book, but like she like explained to me like that's really like how he wrote it. Like every feeling that she had was like, I like, even now being a grown woman, I'm like, yeah, I have those feelings too or whatever. So I just thought that was amazing. But what made me cry, I could just remember, it was like her talking about her weight and feeling like in her body and not feeling like, I think like, desirable, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's just really sad. I remember just feeling really sad, because I know that even at that age, I knew that was like a thing, like not to feel like wanted and stuff. And the way he wrote it just like so emotional. So I cried. I remember crying. Maybe I did cry more when I was younger, because the books that made me boo-hoo was like from back in the day.
Who broke your heart? 'Cause you have not been crying lately.
I know, not to the books, but I cry with movies and TV all the time. So
someone gave her an icebox.
She's Come Undone. That's a really good book, and Christy, you need to read. Have you read it?
I have it. I haven't read it.
Yes,
you made me buy it.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good book, and I'm probably gonna read it again one of these days. So,
no, I actually look at it often and like, am I ready? No,
not am I ready.
So yeah, I do plan on reading that someday, because I've heard that not just from you but from other people. So
it's really good.
So just want to come give you some of our emotionally stirring books that has moved us. We wanted to just mention some other books that we haven't really been talking about, because we've been reading before we started this channel. So we just wanted to mention some of them. So yes, so let us know those books that emotionally move you. Yes,
give us some of your crybaby books.
Asia won't cry to them. I will weep.
I may.
Try to hit a happy medium.
Right. I may weep. Give me a good one. Suggest a book to me that's like, no doubt about it, you feel like it's gonna make me cry, and I'm gonna read it and tell you.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that challenge.
Exactly.
Find the book that's gonna make us both cry. So comment down below, like, subscribe, ring that bell so you can get notifications when we post, and come on back next time. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye, Charlie.